The Encounter at Colchuck Lake. With me, along with a handful of other kids and one adult chaperone. We started our hike from a trailhead off Icicle River Road, just outside of Leavenworth, Washington. The trail wound through thick wilderness, climbing steadily toward Colchuck Lake, sitting at about 5,200 feet elevation. Around 2 miles in, our adult leader slipped and fell into the creek while crossing. With 4 more miles to go, Glenn and I volunteered to go on ahead and build a fire so he could warm up once he arrived. By the time we reached the lake, darkness had swallowed everything around us. We couldn't even see the water at first. It was just blackness all around. Somewhere along the way we lost the trail, or maybe it just disappeared into the rocks near the shore. We ended up circling the area, taking turns staying put while the other scouted ahead, yelling back and forth to stay connected. Eventually, Glenn found a lean-to shelter, and we decided to camp there for the night. As the clouds thinned, moonlight began to shine through. Glenn went exploring again and came back, saying we were just past the lake. I grabbed a pan and walked down to the water's edge to collect some for cooking. That's when I heard the screams. They echoed from across the lake, high-pitched, sharp, not quite human, but not animal either. I froze. Then, suddenly, they weren't across the lake anymore. They were halfway around it, moving fast. My brain screamed cougar. I thought it was racing around the lake to get to me. Panicking, I ran back to camp, dropped the water, and grabbed my .22 rifle. Glenn and I waited for something to show itself, but nothing did. Eventually, with the others still not arriving, we cooked some food and called it a night. I couldn't sleep. An hour or two later, I was still lying awake when I noticed something. A tall, shadowed head was moving along the far side of our 6-foot windbreak, quietly, smoothly. I assumed it was the adult who had fallen earlier, finally catching up with us and looking for something in my pack. I said, "You finally made it." Then it stood up. That's when I realized it wasn't who I thought it was. It wasn't human at all. Whatever it was, it towered at least a foot or two above the windbreak, making it around 7.5 to 8 feet tall. It was broad, wider than any man I'd ever seen. In the pale light of the moon and the dying glow of our fire, I could see the outline of what people would later come to call Bigfoot. I was frozen. The rifle was right beside me, but I was too scared to use it. I just watched. After a long moment, the creature turned and silently walked away into the trees. I quickly woke Glenn. By then it was gone, but we could both hear the sound of it moving through the brush beyond our camp. Morning came, but sleep never did. I checked my pack and found it rummaged through, my belongings scattered across the ground. Strangely, the only thing missing was a package of Oreo cookies. The wrapper was still there, but every cookie was gone. I hadn't seen it eat them, but I couldn't think of any other explanation. When the rest of the group finally arrived, I told them what had happened. The adult insisted it must have been a bear, but I knew better. Someone joked about Bigfoot, but none of us really believed in that, at least not then. Later that day, we walked around the lake to the area where I'd heard the screams. Along the southern edge of the lake, we found a talus slope filled with massive rocks, some as large as 20 feet across. Beneath one of them was a sort of cave, formed by a flat rock propped up like a roof. Inside, we saw brush and possibly bedding. In the back, tangled in the brush, was a tuft of black hair. Everyone called it a bear den. But the hair, the screams, the towering figure from the night before, I wasn't so sure anymore. Years later, while helping my dad with a job, I spotted a magazine called The Year of the Sasquatch. The cover caught my eye. Inside was a map of sightings. Colchuck Lake had a cluster of dots around it. That was the first time I let myself believe maybe they're real. Also noticed high-pitched screams, initially thought to be a cougar. Backpack rummaged through, only the cookies were taken. Strange cave-like den with black hair inside. Time and conditions, around 2:30 in the morning, dark with light from the moon. Environment: Colchuck Lake sits near the tree line. The area had scattered trees, possibly pine or fir, and a talus slope made of massive rocks. To this day, I still wonder what watched us from the shadows that night. If you've heard the screams too, like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments.